Hey, all you space cats. Welcome to the Black Hole Podcast, Season 7, Episode 40. I'm Mitch Miller, your host, the most neutral human being on the planet, the most transparent presidential candidate you'll find on a ballot that's not on a ballot, and a free market entrepreneur. I'm also an underground artist. This podcast started in a coal mine. So buy some of my art. It's out at Original Ideas Gallery, as well as I can be contacted if you'd like to purchase some art. It could be worth money someday or now. I just want to touch on what I talked about on the last episode. So we have President Trump talking about a nationwide deportation of all undocumented workers, right? And I said how the Republicans love this type of worker because they have no rights and can't unionize. Well, the undocumented workers here must be making too much money. That's why Trump and his buddies are going to use the military to deport all the undocumented workers here and get a fresh group in that start at a lower pay level, right? It's a typical corporate strategy. So anyway, this could be the final episode of the season unless something crazy happens. I'm recording this pretty far in advance, so if something crazy happens in the election or current events, I might pop on here again. But if not, again, tune into my videos. I'll get into that towards the end. I want to talk about this case of with Disney. Family ate at a Disney-owned restaurant, and a woman died of a food allergy. The husband, they were trying to use his streaming contract to say that it had to go to arbitration instead of an actual trial. And that's where we've come with corporate communism, right? That you're trying to appease your kid by putting a cartoon on, and you don't have time to read an entire streaming contract, so you just click and get it on there. And that's probably why these corporations diversified in the media, in streaming channels, so that they can lock you into these contracts, these point-click contracts. So who knows where we're going with this? Apparently they've dropped that argument. The Disney Corporation has dropped it now, but it's an interesting concept for sure. So while we're on the media, I'd like to suggest a new strategy, right? I said politicians hide behind their nuclear missiles. Executives hide behind the nuclear weapons as well. That's why they can go to any country in the world and enslave whole populations to make us cheap garbage products that they bring to market here in the United States. But I want to talk about a new strategy because I want to talk about why advertising is a tax write-off for most companies, right? You can write it off on your taxes, your advertising. Television, radio, when they were developed, as we were building television and radio, I believe the government allowed you to write off advertising on these mediums to help build them out, right? Because you're helping to build out the emergency broadcast system that the government can then use to warn people about emergencies. Right, so that may be why they passed laws to allow you to advertise and write off the cost of that. But then coaxial cable came along, fiber optic. The media companies found a way to charge a subscription fee before it was being broadcast over airwaves and things like that. And now we're here with paying $100 a month for internet and TV, and plus on top of that streaming channels. I want to issue a new challenge because I challenged all billionaires and millionaires to take a intelligence test designed by me, and of course they're too cowardly to even contact me about that test or even think about taking it. So the new challenge, I want to issue a new challenge to the billionaires and millionaires of the United States. Why don't you deliver us, the public, free internet and cable TV to the U.S.? And what I'm saying here, it involves a different advertising strategy, but we have the technology. We have the technology for a household every time you turn on your TV, there's a 10-second little screen that says, this cable television was brought to you by Cadillac or whatever company. And once a day when you connect to the internet, I said once a day, for 10 seconds on your little screen, you'll see this fiber optic internet was brought to you by Discover or whatever company, right? So, executives, I'm challenging you. You're the best negotiators in the world, right? That's what you tout yourselves on. You negotiate your salary. That's why you won't share it with anyone, and why we don't have transparency in salaries, so that women make the same as men. So, can you negotiate television, cable television, and internet costs down to a reasonable rate? I'm sure if you took this new strategy and you said, we're going to pull our advertising out because we figured out that we spend this amount on a household per household, right? I bet you could get the price of TV, cable TV, and internet down to $10 per household. You could threaten to pull out all your advertising. You could work with the government to change the tax code if the media companies don't comply. If we get it down to $10, you'll spend $120 per household, and it can vary. Different companies could step in on different days. You can mix it up on these screens, but we have the technology to do this. And if someone doesn't want to have that little 10-second screen in their house, they can pay the $10 subscription fee to not have these screens pop up, right? But we have the technology. So that's the challenge. Bring the cost down for every American. Do your negotiation stuff, but why can't we deploy this strategy for advertising? You can still buy commercials and all the other garbage stuff that you buy through the media, but if we focus on households receiving these simple couple-second screens, nothing fancy, just wording, I think we can get the cost way down. All right. I've talked about my modcast before. So my modcast, As the World Turns, the podcast for the modern world, a world in which all your electronic devices could be listening to you, even your television. And I did this for a year and a half, 2 years in my house. I was not taking medication for periods of time during that. And I figured out why I did this modcast. I was thinking about it. And some of you might have had access to this, or maybe nobody could ever hear the modcast. But if you're trying to dissect that, I would scrap most of the modcast, because I was picking up on some wireless frequencies and saying some pretty wild stuff in the privacy of my own home, with nothing recording me, no record button pressed on anything, on any of my electronics on my end, right? But I think I figured out why I took it upon myself to do this modcast, because after I got out of solitary confinement, I asked my spouse to cancel the cable, cancel the internet, and I sat around this house in silence for many, many days, months. And then one day, my spouse came home and turned on the television, and the cable was on. I don't know that the Comcast cable company ever actually shut my cable off to my house. But I got to thinking about it, and I think it was to draw the attention of the hackers and the media companies that spy on our houses. So that veterans could have private conversations in their house with their spouses after coming back from war or wherever, whatever duty they had to serve, and being able to talk freely with their spouse without having to worry about non-disclosure agreements with the federal government. Because these agreements, if if these companies can spy on people's houses and listen in their house, who's to say some executive got disguised or representing themselves as the CIA or whatever doesn't manipulate these military personnel using audio they took from their house of them confessing different things to their spouse, right? So it leaves. So I believe I did this modcast organically to kind of draw the attention away from a lot of private conversations, and that's my theory. It could have just been me being really weird in my house, but I don't recommend listening to the modcast if you have access to that. Again, I can't remember what I said, and I didn't record it, so it was never recorded in my house, but just wanted to touch on that. So I talked about before the SOBs, the Society of Billionaires, using their top secret satellite to point it at my property in Pittsburgh, my house, and torture me in my own house while I painted several paintings. And when you realize this is happening, sometimes, again, I left the country multiple times, partially, and I leave my house every week, partially to escape, hypothetically, this concentrated beam of wireless energy on my house, right? So I was drawn to Washington, D.C., and then I flew over to Europe to escape this beam. And then I knew that the SOBs, the Society of Billionaires, had found me in Denmark when so there was this large wax mound in Tusenfrue, the cafe / bar / venue that I was working at and staying at in Aalborg, Denmark. And I would work the bar, and I would close down at night, and I'd be alone by myself in there. And we burned candles on the tables. And there was this large mound that probably started as a large candle that burned and melted all the wax. And then I think every night different people would dump the candles on this original candle, and it made this huge, probably large pumpkin-sized mound of wax. It looked like almost like a sculpture right near the stairs of Tusenfrue. And I was alone one night and cleaning up, and this mound just randomly cracked in half, and half of it fell to the ground and shattered everywhere. And it exposed this metal pipe that was in the candelabra or whatever that was inside. And I believe this metal pipe became excited because of this wireless beam of energy concentrated via satellite on my location. So I take the context clues around me and try to use them as evidence. It could have just been freak timing that this large mound that had been around for months or years decided to crack and shatter. Or it could have been the metal pipe inside becoming excited because the SOBs wanted to point their satellite technology right at my location again. So I put a lot of ideas out there in this season, but I have more. The best ones I've saved to present to the indigenous people of the United States and hypothetically the world. Now, I believe government workers should be neutral. If you work for the government, you should be neutral. I also believe that law enforcement should be neutral, and that the military, because the United States has taken the place as the world police, that the military should be mostly neutral as well. And I want to form an investment class to help invest in these ideas that I'm presenting to the indigenous people. Form an investment class of all female government workers, right? This will be neutral companies, transparent. All female government workers can invest in these ideas if they choose, and male government workers can be voted in by the females if they want to invest in these ideas. So I have 4 presentations. The last 2 involve these this all-female investment class of government workers. The first two, it's for celebrity musicians. I posted on my website about a revolutionary idea to revolutionize the music industry. I'd be happy to present this to celebrity musicians. I also, for celebrity motion picture workers, I have a revolutionary idea for the motion picture industry, revolutionize the industry, and these will empower artists in every regard. And I'd be happy to present these to celebrity motion picture workers. So those are two presentations. I also have ideas for nonprofit and business for law enforcement and military females. Any female that works in law enforcement or the military, any females that work in law enforcement or the military. I have ideas for nonprofit and business. There's at least 3 ideas, and I'd be happy to present that to that group of people. And then I have ideas for nonprofit and businesses for indigenous people to develop if they so choose. And I hope I've proven that I'm quite a problem solver and that I should be involved in these businesses in some way. The last 2 ideas tie into each other for the law enforcement, military, females, and the indigenous people. I'd be happy to meet with law enforcement and military personnel if they show me their official government IDs. I would request that there be no recording devices or listening devices in the room when I present this. I'd be happy to meet with indigenous peoples if they want to contact me. Again, I'd just request no recording devices or listening devices in the room. So this investment class can invest in both of these, the law enforcement, military, females, and the indigenous, hypothetically with their permission. But we can't keep this investment class in the dark, the female government workers that aren't necessarily law enforcement, military. So if they want to hear the indigenous people's presentation, the ticket to hear this, you must have a government pay stub and an email printed out that you emailed an indigenous tribe to try to get them to listen to my presentation, to invite them to listen to a presentation or set up a scenario where they could. So we're doing outreach. Any female that works for any government, local, state, county, federal, can be in this investment class. And I'd appreciate it if you would reach out to indigenous tribes, at least 1 email per person to get their attention, because I'm only one person. I can email them myself, but I don't know how successful that's going to be with my record and standing. Contact me at thenovelm@gmail.com. That's the novel letter M at gmail.com. If you'd like to hear these presentations, I'll come to you and do the presentation. To the celebrities, I'm looking into attending the American Film Market in Las Vegas, November 8th through the 11th is when I might be there. I'm looking very closely at flying out there. It'll be after the election, so you don't have to worry about contacting me and influencing my profile. Send your agents, or if they don't want to come, your personal assistants. I'll give you a teaser presentation that they can record and send to you on their phones, but I'm going to save the revolutionary presentations for when we meet, if we meet in person. And I can't leave you hanging. I know I said email me the word Denmark, and I'll send you the links to these videos coming out October 15th through December 25th so that you can keep following along with my content. I'm going to post the video links on the extradition page of plotm.com. So I'm going to post those links. You won't be able to link. You'll have to type it in by hand, but I'll publish those YouTube URLs. So I believe that's all I had. Thanks for listening to this season of the Black Hole Podcast. And as always, I'll plug my websites, almavoter.com, trafnet.org, plotm.com, and mitch4mayor.com. That's Mitch, the number 4mayor.com. Thanks for listening. As always, I wish you peace, prosperity, and homeostasis.